Did you ever wonder what's the opposite of imposter syndrome? For people that struggle with the self doubt that is irrational, what about the opposite of that? The ones that are not self doubting, ones that are overconfident. Let's talk about that. There are many syndromes, experiences, situations out there that look a lot like the opposite of imposter syndrome. I'm going to highlight or briefly touch on 6 of them. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not pretending to know all the ins and outs. In fact, everything I found through everything I'm showing you, I found through a quick Google search. Well, it wasn't so quick. I've spent a lot of time researching this. But for further information, Google it yourself. Now, the first opposite of imposter syndrome is not really opposite, but more of a frequently confused version of imposter syndrome, simply because it's got the word imposter in it. And I mentioned this briefly quite a bit in another video. These are people that are real imposters. These are the people that are truly faking their identity. They're lying about who they are. They've taken on a persona. They are out to deceive and cheat and lie, and they get some kind of a sick thrill. So that's the first type of kind of opposite of imposter syndrome, even though they really are true imposters. That's not you. The second opposite of imposter syndrome is more closely aligned as a true opposite. People with imposter syndrome underestimate their ability. People that overestimate their ability, and I'm sure you've seen it if you've ever seen an episode of like American Idol, especially, going way back to the early stages of the show, in the beginning of a season where they get all these random people, like a big, huge call for talent. And there's some jewels in the crowd. There are some knockout talents, but then there are some people that are not even close. I mean, you got a bunch of them in the middle that are good. They need work. But then you've got some that are awful. And the judges tell them, "You're awful." And the contestant or the person auditioning erupts in anger, rage. "You don't know what you're talking about. Everybody else says I have talent. Blankety blank on you, and you don't," and they just storm off. Those people that completely overestimate their ability, that's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. So here's a definition of Dunning-Kruger effect, which I'm actually reading. When someone overestimates their skill set or knowledge in a specific subject, it's a cognitive bias known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. People who fall victim to it often lack the self-awareness to be able to see their own errors or the ability to fix it. So they neither see that they are not talented or skilled, nor can they figure out how to fix it. The Dunning-Kruger effect. For example, an amateur chess player with little experience might assume that they'll beat out a more experienced competition in their tournament without the right training, without the right intense focus, without the right commitment. They may just simply step into the game and think, "I know how to play chess. I so got this." Boom, boom, boom. And then they get slaughtered, and then they get mad. So that's the Dunning-Kruger effect, the inability to see the level of your skill in a specific area. The third condition that's somewhat related to imposter syndrome, and this is kind of interesting, it's called Capgras Syndrome. It's definitely a psychological aberration. It is not just a tendency. It's not a twisted or distorted thinking. It can be a serious issue. The person with Capgras syndrome irrationally believes that someone they know has been replaced by an imposter. In some cases, they also may believe that pets or even inanimate objects are real people, that they are imposters. So clearly there's some brain issues going on here. In fact, scientists have isolated it to truly a brain dysfunction. It is your brain, the brain is just not firing on all cylinders. So, very rare situation. Again, not the same as imposter syndrome, but because it has, a variation of imposter in the symptoms, I thought it was, interesting to point out. Another condition related to imposter syndrome is called illusory superiority. And I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, but the word illusory, I think of illusion, the illusion of superiority. And it's defined as it's a condition of cognitive bias wherein a person overestimates their own qualities and abilities in relation to the same qualities and abilities of other people. In other words, they kind of compare themselves to others and find themselves superior. Whether or not it is rooted in reality is the issue, because it is an illusion. They just automatically think they are better than other people. So it's different from Dunning-Kruger, where they are unable to see their own ability. This has a little bit more of a comparison issue, where you are actually comparing yourself with other people and finding yourself much more superior. It really does sound quite high, quite high snobbery, I guess. But it is a psychological condition. Related to this illusory superiority, or I should say maybe not related but should not be confused with, a lot of people confuse the two of them, is grandiosity. Grandiosity is something that is found often in people with bipolar disorder. They are maybe narcissistic personality disorder. Maybe they're somewhere on that personality disorder spectrum. And grandiosity is people experiencing grandiosity or grandiose delusions often describe larger than life feelings of superiority. Not just that they are better than everybody, but they are like supremely better than anybody, anything, anywhere, at any time. It is truly a magnified sense of significance, importance, and grandioseness. And obviously, it's a twisted and distorted thought pattern. And finally, the last condition I'd like to address, and I don't know if condition is the right word, situation, experience, it's called false humility. Surely you've heard this phrase, surely you've experienced it. And when you are at the receiving end of false humility, if you recognize it as such, it feels kind of slippery and yucky. I have talked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people about imposter syndrome, and I know it affects and hits people. It's so pervasive at every level of an organization, across different races and cultures and different industries, different pockets of people's lives. It is pervasive. But this false humility has sometimes crept in, and it feels kind of yucky. False humility is not true humility, where you are humbled, where you recognize your limitations, where you are free to admit, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I've never done this before, or the humility required to ask for help or ask for advice or coaching or mentoring or clarification. That's true humility. The false humility is, I guess the best way to describe it is saying one thing, but having a motivation that is completely different. In other words, saying, oh, I'm really not very good at this. And having somebody respond to you with, oh, no, you really are good, which is exactly what you want to hear. In other words, you have this false humility that portrays you to be maybe substandard or not quite up to par or less than capable, even though you fully know you are capable. And really what you're trying to do is elicit encouragement, elicit praise, elicit support. It's flat out manipulative. So if my goal is to get praise and admiration and adulation and applause and, be lifted up, sometimes we tend to kind of seed the conversation. Just put a little piece, put a little worm on the hook, so to speak, to get people to bite and give us exactly what it is that we need. That's false humility. False humility is displaying humility when you've got no reason to be humble or when you really don't feel humble. Since others value humility, false humility is usually a strategy to gain the benefits of coming across as truly humble. People can see it. People can sense it, especially in people that do this habitually. If you know somebody who you constantly feel is fishing for the praise, trying to extract admiration from you, chances are they are aware of what they're doing, and it's intentionally designed to do exactly that, extract the praise. Don't buy into it, and certainly don't do it yourself. So I hope this has been helpful, finding these six different conditions, experiences, syndromes that are related to the opposite of imposter syndrome. And like I said in one of my other videos when I talked about true imposters, most likely these are not you. Most likely you are not somebody who is under this really bad delusion. You're not extracting praise from someone. You are not imagining that people around you are imposters. Chances are you just have this cognitive distortion where you just don't believe the press that says you are amazing. And you are. So again, your imposter syndrome moment is not the same thing as being an imposter or struggling with all these other symptoms and situations and experiences. But to help you get through your imposter moments, you're in the right place. Check out my website, MaureenZ.com, for some more resources to help you overcome your imposter syndrome moments so that you can match your confidence to your competence and explode your influence.